All right, so this deal we got from one of our cold callers. They called the Tired Landlord List. We got it under contract for originally about $95,000. Then Antonio renegotiated them down to $89,000. Closing took about 30 days, and we purchased it with the funds from a previous BRRRR deal that we had refinanced. Closing took about 30 days. We've just wrapped up the remodel, and the appraisal is already scheduled. So let me take you guys through. So we went ahead and started the appraisal early because we want to refinance this place quicker, because what we're doing now on all of our deals is refinancing as fast as possible, because what we are finding is the less time our money is tied up in a deal, we have less cash flow issues keeping projects running, keeping the lights on, keeping payroll. And so with this deal, remodel took about 4 weeks. I already spoke to our DSCR lender 2 weeks ago to start the refinance, because we ran into a lot of problems whenever we would buy a deal, do the remodel, and wait a couple months of collecting rent before refinancing, because what we found was that it really hurt our ability to operate, because we were then trying to make cash flow from our rentals cover payroll for our assistant, our GC, and our entire team, when in reality, we need a cash reserve we need a cash reserve to cover payroll, not just rely on monthly cash flow from rent or wholesaling. So for this deal and deals going forward, we're gonna start doing the refinance as soon as the remodel is within 2 weeks of completion. So this place, 2 weeks ago, I spoke with our DSCR lender, Trishelle, and she started the processing, and the appraiser is gonna be out here on Friday, and the place is done. It's ready to go. It's just it needs some touch-up stuff like switch covers, as you can see here, but it's in good enough shape that we're like, an afternoon away from getting it ready. And so the appraiser is gonna be out here on Friday, and we're gonna try to get our cash out 7 days after that. But let me show you guys what we had to do to this place to add value and force appreciation. All right. I've noticed a lot of new investors worry about what they need to do to a property to force appreciation and add value. So what I've found are that the easiest deals to add value to and force appreciation are just the deals that you take it from obviously uninhabitable and obviously terrible to decent. That, to me, is so much more beginner friendly and simple and scalable than taking decent to something primo, premium, and ultra luxury, whatever. To make a house go from uninhabitable to habitable, it's really, the value add is so much more black and white on properties that were dilapidated, uninhabitable, and then make them, hey, they're not the most sexy, but they are rentable, and it's very obvious the value added. Plus the discount you get on those properties that you literally can't live in are so much steeper that you have more room for error on your exit for the deal, especially if you're doing your own marketing, sourcing a distressed property. So for this place, it technically was habitable, but this entire room, I don't know what the tenants were doing. Tenants do weird stuff, but the flooring was all ripped up. They ripped up the carpet, and it smelled nasty, and it was just a rough property. And so all we had to do to force appreciation and get that value add, so that way we can pull out more than we put in on the refinance, was brand new flooring, simple LVP flooring. It cost us about 1,800 bucks. We went to Home Depot. So that covered flooring, okay? And then for paint, all we did, he didn't even have to texture it. It was just with a sprayer. Flooring, 1,800 in material. Paint, it was like under 1,000 in material. I'll have to look at the receipts. I post on my Instagram, I have a detailed breakdown of the costs for this job specifically, but off the top of my head, I know materials under 1,000 and labor under 2,000. So I'm pretty sure like roughly painting the entire interior around 2,500 to 3,500. But again, I have the exact amounts on my Instagram. I just, off the top of my head, that's about what it costs. But it wasn't that expensive because he did the paint before the flooring. So he's able to just come through with the sprayer, and it takes guys way less time when they don't have to prep and be, sorry about that. That was a call from our banker. So basically we're renewing a line of credit and he needs proof of insurance and some of our 2025 financials in order to renew it. And yes, we've had a lot of problems with using community bank, just because what we have found is they care way more about the business and the borrower than the properties themselves. So for us, we're a newer business and I'm young. I don't have much tax returns to show or W-2 income. So using community banks has been difficult for us. Even though our properties are great, our deals are great, they look at the borrower and they're like, well, you know, W-2 income's not the best. And every single time we want to increase our line of credit or renew a line of credit, it's a headache. They don't care about the property. They just want to look at the borrower. So that's what that call was about. But anyways, yes, so they just did a sprayer, and a lot of people in the comments on Instagram were like, had a problem with my paint price, but the most prices people are used to are painting when they have to move furniture, cover furniture, be really careful. But this had no flooring. It was literally just concrete. So it didn't matter if they got paint on it. And so they could just spray it, rip through. It took them very little time. And there weren't even switch covers. So like, it was super easy for them. And then it was just material. So paint was really, really cheap. Now, that covers the most amount of square footage as far as work you're gonna be doing. Flooring, you know, we had no foundation issues, so it was really easy. Just the carpet was already halfway ripped out. Video here. So it was just lay down the LVP and then paint. So that covered, that on its own added tremendous value to the property. The next biggest area that will contribute to your value add and how the appraiser appraises your property is gonna be the kitchen. We used to go really cheap on our kitchen remodels because we didn't understand the game you got to play with appraisers and getting the actual value add. We were just like, hey, let's do the cheapest remodel possible and just get it rented. We didn't understand that the appraisal is going to be vastly different depending on what you do to the kitchen specifically and bathroom. So we used to just do the really cheap vinyl countertops that you get at Home Depot, and then backsplash. You know, we wouldn't even do it. We'd maybe just paint it. It'd be terrible. And then appliances, we would just use whatever is left in there, or garbage ones from a local appliance, secondhand appliance store, but specifically the oldest, most crappiest ones. We would not ever update stuff like sinks or fixtures. And our appraisals always sucked, and we don't know why. Like, we were like, hey, but look at the places selling in the neighborhood. And then our DSCR lender would show us pictures of those places selling in the neighborhood, and it did not look anything like our remodels. So for this place, our routine now for kitchens is pretty simple. Always granite or quartz countertops. Always update the sink. Cabinets, we don't always replace, but we will sand and paint and get new handles so that way they look and feel new. And for an appraiser specifically, it's gonna check their box as, hey, there's a new kitchen. If you're doing a flip, you gotta worry about passing inspections, and it's typically gonna be to an end buyer, like a owner-occupied buyer, so they're gonna have a lot higher standard on what they expect. But for this, the appraiser is gonna check the box as, yep, brand new kitchen remodel. Then backsplash, we actually we use the same tile we use in the bathrooms, and yeah, I get some crap about using the same tile as we use in the bathrooms, but for the appraiser, it's great. And for a renter, like it's good enough, and it's much better than what the average renter is used to. So, you know, if we're feeling frisky, we'll do subway tile and make it nicer. But that's really it for the kitchen. It's sand, paint, cabinets, appliances look new. You can get certified, refurbished, whatever. Just make sure they look new and they're within, you know, the style of the last 5 years. This stuff you can get on Amazon super cheap, and it looks new. the renter is going to be happier compared to what they're used to in our area of like slumlords. The appraiser is going to be like, yep, thank you for doing a real remodel. And then countertops, these cost us $1,900 because we sourced from, I don't know what you'd call it, like a countertop broker. We found him on Facebook, and he goes around to the different supply houses that maybe have extra inventory or whatever. I don't know, maybe he steals it. I have no idea what he does, but he gets us really great prices. And so that's how we got these. And I would also say, make the appraiser's job easier. Like if you have an appraiser who likes you and like isn't trying to screw you on the appraisal, don't make their job hard by giving them a half-assed kitchen remodel. This is enough, and they don't have to try to convince underwriting like that it's not a remodel. Like it checks the boxes, and we didn't even have to spend that much more, and it's going to make getting our cash out of this deal so much easier. The little stuff, and this stuff doesn't cost you much money, just getting new lights and stuff on Amazon. You know, it's sometimes these like are cheaper than the ones you can get at Home Depot, but they look a little bit more fun. They look more intentional, like you actually are trying to make the place look decent. You're not just being a slumlord. Where you'll get screwed by appraisers is if they start to catch on and think you're a slumlord and you're really cutting corners, because they don't like that. They don't appreciate it. It makes their job harder, and it makes them look bad if they ever start giving you good appraisals and your properties look like crap, and you're going to run into more problems with underwriting. You're going to refinance the deal if you cut corners. Little stuff like this, it helps a ton with underwriting and getting your money out of deals. At least in our experience, because we didn't used to do it, and our loans would take longer because we'd have to fight underwriting, be like, no, we swear we did a remodel, and then you look at the house in question and it looks terrible. So stuff like that, I know it's small, but trust me, it makes a difference. Next biggest area are your bathrooms. All right, so pretty simple with bathrooms. New tub from Home Depot. You don't always need to get a new tub. A lot of times you can just reseal it, but we went ahead and got a new tub. And then tile, always use tile in the bathrooms. You don't want to get those kits from Home Depot that is like the plastic that you put up in here. Look, like the appraiser, you're not going to get any brownie points, and they won't always count it as a new bathroom remodel. We found from both advice from our DSCR lender and the appraisers we worked with that if you put in tile, you're going to get the points for having a new bathroom. This whole bathroom, labor and material under $3,500, very cheap, but we actually drove up a guy from Dallas to do it. He's just kind of halfway retired, and so we got really cheap labor on it. So this is a shower kit on Amazon. All of this came together. It was really cheap. I think like under $100, and it looks new. Tenants aren't going to have a problem with it as long as the actual PEX plumbing behind it, which we did new PEX here, is good. And then toilet, we actually kept the same toilet. The other bathroom I believe we replaced, but toilets are fine. You can keep them if they look in decent shape. We don't always replace them, but if you do, they're like $75. Labor, you pay a guy $100, not bad. But new tile. We were going to do glass shower doors just because that really gets you some brownie points with the appraiser. But we found with the tub and the fact that tenants are going to be here, it just doesn't really make sense. Now for this stuff, this is pretty cool. Amazon is fantastic these days with things like vanities. So this vanity, $250, and it's actual ceramic or porcelain. This too came, this was a separate kit we got. Super easy to install, new PEX plumbing underneath, mirror from Amazon, lights from Amazon. And yeah, Amazon is nice because we just order it to the job, and the guys know when those packages get there, like, yeah, it's obvious, put in the vanity. And we could do Home Depot delivery, but for us, we've been getting better selection on Amazon, and the quality is pretty decent. And it's been working for us. So that's what the bathroom is. It's really just Amazon vanity, $250, mirror, LED lights. The lights are a nice little fix, a nice little addition to make it look nice and new. And then tile, tub. And that's really it for these bathrooms. And this is enough for the appraiser to qualify it as a brand new remodel. So we're good there. Now, all this stuff too, super cheap and easy on Amazon, especially when you're ordering a bunch of that little stuff. It's nice. It's pretty easy to track too for bookkeeping if you're ordering on Amazon. Now for the bedrooms, Again, all we did, more of the flooring, paint. Windows we did not replace because they already were argon filled. Super efficient. That gives you some points with the appraiser. Those double pane argon filled windows, they're considered more energy efficient and it helps you out in the appraisal. So we didn't have to replace those. We got lucky that the previous owner put those in. So that's gonna help us out there. But then as far as stuff like fan, again, on Amazon, and it's the ones with the remote, they're pretty cheap. And yeah, and then here's the master bedroom. Same thing again. It's real simple, you know. It was paint and flooring, windows already new, and that's good enough for our value add because remember, again, this place had like torn up, disgusting carpet. Walls were dirty. It was a mess. No one would want to live in here. So all we had to do to add our value and force that appreciation was new flooring, paint, and then this stuff, you know, it's new, it's updated. There's really dated fans in here. So bang, we're good on the value add for the master bedroom. Same thing again with this bathroom. Keeping it simple. We're not getting fancy with it. We're not getting cute with it. Really simple and functional, new to the eye and touch, like new look, new feel. And that's good enough for the appraiser. So for this place, let me break down the numbers. Oh, then we had a additional interesting thing here. Let me show you guys. So they converted half of the garage. So this used to be a garage, but they still have a garage technically, which there's two. Let me show you why that's so great. So normally in our market, we'll have a lot of people convert a garage to be extra square footage, and we hate it because we find tenants, at least in our market, really want a garage to park because, you know, there's bad weather here and stuff like that. And so we get frustrated when people do that because yes, you technically can get a little better appraisal, but you're gonna run into problems with tenants that are like, no, I need my garage, and it actually doesn't help you rent it out for that much more unless you're doing stuff with Section 8. So what they did here that is so great is this is only half of the garage. This is technically a bedroom because a bedroom is only considered a bedroom when it has a closet and a window. So this counts as a bedroom. And then on the other half of this wall is a one-car garage. So we get the square footage of a bonus bedroom plus kept the garage. So it helps us with the renting aspect of it. But then for the appraisal side, like we get to count this as another bedroom. So the appraisal is going to be fantastic. And the air conditioner is in here. So let me show you guys something about the air. Yeah, it's a little bit older of a machine, but it's a good Lennox and it's got another 5 to 10 years left in it. I'd say probably more like 10. Now for the appraiser, from what I've been told, the appraisers I've spoken to, they give it like an eye test. If the HVAC looks distressed, they'll ding you. But if it's within 10 to 15 years, but it looks clean and well maintained, we haven't ran into any issues. So with this system, it runs great. It's a little bit older, but we don't need to replace it. So we don't need, no reason to. It's not gonna help us on the appraisal that much. If we did put in a new system, it's not gonna do much. So we left the HVAC system and it works great. We're not gonna have any problems. Central air too. If you're looking at deals, like especially cheaper deals, for rent comps, if you got central air, you're gonna rent it much better than places you gotta put in window units. That was something I learned the hard way because I would be running rent comps on a property with no central air, comparing it to places with central air, and then I'd be confused why I couldn't rent it for the same price as other places. People want central heat and air. They don't like window units, they don't like space heaters. So if you're running rent comps and you're buying a property without air, factor that in, drop it down a little bit, what you expect. We replaced the water heater. Now, this it doesn't add that much value putting in a new water heater. It's just kind of it's more so for the tenants. And so this, you know, it cost us $600 in material, roughly $600 in labor. So that was $1,200 to replace the water heater. It's Not gonna help us that much on the appraisal, but you gotta do it for your renters. The things that make tenants move out are not I get a lot of comments about like, oh, everything you're using is cheap Amazon. Like, I would hate to live in an Amazon house. But at the end of the day, what makes tenants stay in a property isn't how nice the fixtures are, it's how reliable the essential systems are. In our experience, the only times we have a tenant not renew a lease or want to move out is because the essential systems are unreliable. The place never stays cool, the place never stays hot, their sinks always back up, the toilet always backs up, the hot and cold water pressure sucks, the electrical sucks. That is the stuff that makes tenants move out and get frustrated and not renew leases. It's not gonna be, well, this is just a cheap, this is just a cheap shower kit from Amazon and I can tell that it's cheap. People don't move out with that because of that stuff. That stuff gets them in the door, like how it visually appeals, but long-term, what makes people move out of properties is when the essential systems don't work. So again, that's why we're okay with going cheap on the Amazon stuff as long as the core systems, we do all the correct maintenance and make sure they're up to date. So making sure the HVAC works great and it's been serviced, hot water heater, electrical, plumbing, all of that, make sure there's no corners cut there. And we don't really have to worry about them complaining because this is it's a cheap sink from Amazon. I can tell it. No, they're not saying that because we've been guilty of doing the opposite where we neglected the essential systems and just made it look as nice as possible on top. Every single time, it's really easy to get tenants in because they're like, oh my gosh, it looks so amazing. As soon as they start living there for a little bit, their toilet backs up every few weeks. Their hot water pressure sucks. And those people are either trying to get out of their lease or when it comes time to renew, they're gone. So yeah, you can go cheap on the topical stuff, make the essential systems work fantastic, and you will not need to worry about tenants moving out because they're frustrated with the property. Let me show you guys what we had to do for the backyard. All right, so this backyard, when we bought it, was filled with stuff. B-roll video here. And that actually, we had a situation with the tenant whenever we closed on it. They were just filling this backyard with stuff and they had it filled. They even had a shed back here. They had motorcycles, a trampoline. It was just filled with junk. And they were supposed to vacate the day of closing and bring us the keys. I actually met the tenant. I got the keys from him. And he was like, oh, my fiance has the other key, but she'll be bringing it back. Well, cut to 3 days later, and one of our guys we sent out here to start picking away the stuff found out the tenant was still sleeping in here because he had so much stuff because he's a hoarder. His whole backyard is filled with stuff. He had so much stuff. He was spending the night here trying to haul off more junk. And when we closed on the deal and saw how much stuff was left here, we were a little worried that we were going to have to be responsible for hauling off all that stuff, or we were going to be responsible for holding it for 30 days because there's a rule in our state about if someone gets evicted or vacates, there's a certain number of days you have to hold their property before you can start trashing it out. But anyways, luckily the tenant ended up getting most of it, and then the rest of the stuff we just listed on Facebook. I was like, hey, come and get it. And that cleared up the backyard. It was only about 2 or 3 trips to the dump for our guys. We didn't have to get a dumpster or anything, and it cost us under $2,000 to trash out the interior and exterior. Off-market deals, messy situations. The first thing you gotta do most of the time is gonna be hauling off junk and clearing the property out. Because when we bought this place, it was filled to the brim. Like when we actually walked it for the first time, it was filled to the brim with junk. So the first thing we had to do when we closed was clear out that junk so we can get a better idea of the condition of the place. And then backyard, that was just its own thing. I'm gonna talk about the numbers now. The numbers for this place, we bought it for $89,000. Our marketing costs on this, we spend about $4 grand a month on our entire cold calling team. For this deal itself, I would say, let's just say it cost us 1 month of cold calling for 1 VA, so about $1,000. I'd roughly say $1,000 marketing cost to get this deal. That's a safe estimate because of all 4 of our VAs, each VA gets us about 1 deal a month. And so for the VA that got us this, I'll consider their month of calling the cost for this deal. So the cost to find the deal via marketing, $1,000. Closing costs and fees, roughly $2,000. But again, we own our own title company. All in to purchase the house, about $91,500. And the actual remodel itself, we just finished it out. It cost us $22,192. And this is what it covered in order that we did it. Trash, haul off, clean out, demo, flooring, paint, countertops, sanding and painting the cabinets, all the material of the house. So stuff like the vanities, tub, tile, flooring material, paint material, appliances, all that was covered. So then we're all in at about 111 to 115, and our conservative ARV is $185,000. However, comps in this area are going well over 230, but we wanted to be extra safe and assume the bottom number. And so we're gonna pull out 75% by doing a DSCR loan with our DSCR lender. And so we'll pocket roughly $138,000 in cash after the loan closes. Now, of course, we are trying to get it to appraise for 230. So if it appraises for 230, we're gonna be pulling out $176,000. So that would be amazing. Now, regardless, our all-in cost under 115, and our bare minimum we're pulling out is 138,000. So either way, we're getting all our cash out of this deal and a little bit extra. Now for rent and cash flow, this place is gonna rent for roughly $1,600, maybe $1,650, because it's a 4-bed, 2-bath, and those do really well in our market. So our mortgage payment, we're expecting it to be $1,000 to $1,200 a month. I need to actually look at the term sheet on the loan, but after we do close on the loan, I will post that, of course. Now, after insurance, taxes, property management, we are gonna be happy if this deal cash flows us anywhere between $50 a month to $250 a month. We're gonna land somewhere in that range. Now, depending on how much cash we pull out of the deal is gonna impact how much we cash flow, because yes, it's gonna be fantastic if we pull out 176,000, but the rent amount is going to be the same whether it appraises for 138,000 or 176,000. So the larger loan we take out, we are going to have less cash flow. However, we really don't care that much about the cash flow if we're pulling out more than we put in. As long as the rent covers our monthly debt and expenses, we're happy because we have all that cash out of the deal and we're going to put it into another deal, and we don't do anything with our cash flow from our rentals because we rely on income from the title company and wholesaling and building a cash reserve from every refinance, because every refinance is us tapping into that value add and that equity we create. And so how we're operating now is every refinance, we set aside more cash reserves for our operations, so covering payroll for our GC, our assistant, so on and so forth. We've set that cash in an account to keep operations running so we can keep buying more deals. Then monthly cash flow, because of how variable it can be depending on what happens at every property, like HVAC goes out, stuff like that, collections, occupancy, we are trying to build our portfolio to not be cash flow dependent, as in if we have a bad month on rent collections, we're not screwed. We keep the lights on because we build a cash reserve from every single refinance we do. And our focus is on making a machine that acquires deals at a discount, adds value, and gets the cash out as quickly and as reliably as possible, because every house we touch, we're basically getting $40,000 to $60,000 richer as far as our net worth goes, because the biggest gain we get out of having a GC and assistant is the fact that it allows us to do more value add deals where we come and take an asset, make it worth more, and are able to recycle our capital and do it to another asset. That's the part that's making us really wealthy. It's not the monthly cash flow. Now, the long game with this is, of course, to eventually stop buying, and then we'll have our cash flow. But the name of the game for us right now, what is increasing our wealth the most, is every house we touch, the value add we create. So our priority is doing that more often at scale, and we're not prioritizing cash flow. That's why we try not to need cash flow to run our operations, because our goal is to do as many deals as possible, because each deal we do increases our net worth. So for this deal, we're gonna pull out as much cash as we can. We'll set aside probably about 3 months worth of our GC salary, 3 months worth of our assistant salary from this deal, and then a few months of maintenance, repair, reserves for this property, and then the rest of the cash we'll put into the next deal and do the whole process again. I see a lot of people talking about how, BRRRR strategy doesn't work anymore because they don't cash flow. But like, the BRRRR strategy never worked because of the cash flow. It worked because of the debt deflation and your ability to recycle capital and use it as a really tax efficient vehicle to scale your net worth. The best BRRRR investors didn't scale their portfolios because of they were reliant on the cash flow. It was because of the equity they create in every single deal they touch. And so the name of the game for us is to do more deals, create more equity, cash flow, keep the lights on. And then eventually cash flow is what we're gonna live off of and run things. But in the meantime, it's far more scalable to not be dependent on cash flow. If you guys liked this video, please like and subscribe. If there's anything you want me to talk more about, please comment below. And thanks for watching. Peace.